After a strong finish last week for the Philadelphia 76ers with 2 games won on Friday and Saturday, the fourth set of their back-to-backs, they start this week off with their 5th and final set of back-to-backs starting with the Lakers on Tuesday, ending up with another game on Wednesday. 4 games in total this week, all at home, as the Sixers once again try to find that rhythm and have that arrow pointing up instead of going backwards. Welcome to
instead
the
PHLY
into
the pits of hell where
Sixers
it's been most of this season.
Podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365, along with Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Bree is with us as well. And before we get going, we got to tell you that we have a great deal going on right now at ALLPHLY.com with the Birds flying high after their win in the NFC Championship game, moving on to the Super Bowl. The deal that we have right now going on at allphly.com is a 36-hour deal where you have 1 full day, 24 hours, and 4 more hours. So in total, right? Okay, you got about 28 hours and some change left to sign up for this 36-hour deal. And you get everything, of course, as you celebrate the Birds playoff run, unlimited access and exclusive perks for just $36. You get that as well for $3 a month. So you break it down and you say, all right, break $3 a month. I can live with that. $3 a month. And you get great access to the written content from Derek Bodner for the Sixers, of course, Kyle Neubeck, the same thing, and all that is going on currently with the Philadelphia Eagles. Zach Berman, Fran Duffy, Bo Wolf, Les Bowen. I saw Ed Barkowitz wrote a story as well. Great to have Ed Barkowitz aboard. Charlie with the Flyers, and so much more with the Phillies as they get ready for pitchers and catchers coming up here shortly. But again, take advantage of the deal. $36 for 36 hours. You have just under 29 hours remaining, $3 a month. Take advantage of this great deal to get the great written content from my teammates here at allphly.com. Now, as far as the basketball side of things go, we got a lot to get to. We are going to talk about, of course, the trade deadline being less than 2 weeks away. We're going to start off with that. Practice notes from Kyle and Derek being at practice today as the Sixers do again start a 6-game homestand. We will get to our All-Star reserves. They will be announced on Thursday, but this is our only 3 p.m. show this week. So the fellas have to give
the only 3 p.m. show until deadline day,
and
which is crazy.
Have to give the reserves today, so we'll do that at the end of the show as well, and a few other nuggets in between as we go along here on the PHLY Sixers show. So Kyle, as we start off with the trade deadline, which is on February 6th. And as you mentioned, this is our last show during that time where we have an opportunity to do what we do here before the deadline and talk about it. We're going to give just some thoughts on players that we like and we think make sense for the Sixers. All of you, we would like for you to give your thoughts in the chat, especially with so many people trying to decide what direction you want the basketball team to go in. So we'll all give our thoughts. We'll do a bunch of other stuff a little bit later. But to start things off, man, where would you like to begin when it comes to?
Well, so let's touch on a guy. I think we're all going to advocate for at least one player ourselves today. Let's just start with one of the guys that's in the graphic who we have talked about on the show that I think is in terms of fit, is a slam dunk candidate. That is Santi Aldama. Hedfa, I know, is in the YouTube chat today.
First comment.
Fired up for this. So
she saw that graphic and she was like, I'm in.
But brought up one of my guys also in there.
Okay.
Cam Whitmore.
So Santi Aldama, I think, is one of the clearest cut cases you can make on just about every front, right? So someone that is probably going to get moved, or at least Memphis has incentive to move because they opted not to pay Santi ahead of this season. The indication is they're not going to pay whatever it takes to keep him on the roster, but they wanted to give him the opportunity to play up to the deadline, maybe generate some more value, and certainly help them win games in the short term. So restricted free agent this summer. They're incentivized, hey, let's go out and get some future value and not lose Santi Aldama for nothing in the summer. That's number one. Number two, the Sixers could use versatile front court players, right? We've seen what Gershon Yabusele has done this year, what a difference he's made, moving back and forth between the 4 and the 5 spot, frankly, playing a lot more of the 5 than anybody was expecting. And Santi fits in that role. A little taller, I believe, than Yabusele.
You're about to say bigger, and they're like, I should choose my words wisely.
Not as thick as Yabu is, right? So that changes the matchup composition a little bit, but has shown the ability to play both the 4 and the 5. Notably, has at least a decent track record of shooting success. So this has been Aldama's best season by about a couple percentage point and a half from 3. Good volume, is a stretch big. So as someone who can be a pick and pop partner for Maxey in the short term, but also someone like McCain next year and other guys, assuming that you're trading for him to bring Aldama back. I think he's one of the clearest cut guys in the league, period, that you could say fills a need on the Sixers. They need more size. They need rebounding. They need just players who have a skill on the offensive end as well, who can open it up for their drivers and open it up for Maxey and Paul George, assuming he plays again this year. We'll get to that in a minute. But Santi Aldama, very good player, having a very good year this year. And I think we've discussed him on the show for good reason. Yep. Is a great fit and is probably available at a price that, while it's not going to be cheap, it's also not, you're not going to break the bank of picks to get him.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's somebody listening to this now or listen to it on a playback later going like, why in the bleepity bleep 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 would the Sixers be buyers? And I think when you look at this, because I think we all agree the championship odds right now do not feel
low
exceptionally
or
high.
Non-existent.
So if you're looking at it, any of these targets have to be someone that you're either under a long-term contract or you feel confident you can bring them back under a new deal when theirs expires. For example, like Santi, who will be a restricted free agent this summer. He's young enough, only 24. Or did he turn 25? I think he's only 24 years old. 24, actually just turned 24 years old. So he's young. He's at a position of need because if he is, if you believe in that shot and he's improved a little bit year over year, although I think last year might have been down year. He's improved over the course of his career. He's a decent enough shooter from the perimeter. Like Kyle said, some pretty good volume. Someone that can play next to Joel at a pinch because he's 6'11". Not a great, actually, I don't think Santi's necessarily great at necessarily anything, but he has a very well-rounded game. Like he can give you, he's a credible shooter, probably good considering his position. Like as a center, he's probably a pretty good shooter. He's a credible, he can block a shot, but he's not going to be elite on that. He's got pretty good hands.
He's at least tall enough that if he's at the rim, it's a decent contest.
He's a good passer. He's not a initiate your offense guy, but he can attack a closeout. He can make good decisions. He does a lot of things in either average or above average level. And because of that, and because of his age, that's a really good fit with what you need. So again, if you're sitting here going like, why would the Sixers be buyers? It's because you're looking for long-term pieces, not necessarily someone to help you win over the next couple of months.
The thing that I like about him is a player, he knows his role. He knows what he has to do out there to help out. No plays called for him, but he always finds the ball swings to him. He can shoot. He can put the ball on the floor a little bit, finishes at the rim with the athleticism. That's just a guy that, again, when we talk about team players and selflessness and all that type of stuff, where guys just want to go out there and win, he is one of them. And when you build around Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George, you need a ton of those guys that are just not going to worry about themselves, as we've talked about with a few on the roster, and especially at the beginning of the season when we projected this thing to be a little bit different, that you need players like that. And he is one, and at the age of 24, being able to give him that extension, you feel pretty good with his fit around all three of those guys. And even if they had to adjust from those big three and maybe move on from some different stuff, he would still fit within the timeline and next to certainly Tyrese Maxey. And overall, when you look at continuing to build this out to a potential playoff, but championship roster, he is one that you have no problem just sliding right in there to pick up the slack. And even when you look at right now with Joel Embiid being out, Yabusele playing the way that he has played at that 5 spot, you look at Santi Aldama and say, as many injuries that the Memphis Grizzlies have had, he's played a lot of different roles, and he has succeeded in all of those roles with that team, which makes him an interesting target for not only the Sixers, but I'm sure some other organizations out there too.
The one thing I will say, because Kyle brought up that they would be incentivized to move him, and for the most part, I agree with that. Clearly, there is a disconnect on the next contract and an unwillingness to give what he was looking for. I do think with some of these teams, especially with restricted free agents, but generally speaking with most free agents, I think there are a lot of players who are probably not yet caught up to the new realities. So if you want to keep someone like Santi, keep him as a restricted free agent, and be like, all right, look, go out there and try to find that money you want.
Yeah.
They might want to keep him around just because, they feel strongly that the market isn't going to be there for him, and he can then come back to them and maybe get him on a deal that he wouldn't be willing to accept last fall. So I think with a lot of these, is he definitely available? Who knows? We'll see. It really depends on how much Memphis feels like he would be willing to come back at a good price. But I do think there's just going to be some kind of recalibration here with this new collective bargaining agreement and the aprons and all that nonsense I'm trying not to bore you with. But I think some teams will call bluffs basically on this.
Yeah. And historically that has also been the case, right? Like the reason that teams want restricted free agency is so that they can hopefully have some of these situations where they basically dare their player, like, hey, you go find the money, and look, if you can get it, then we like you. We'll bring you back. We'll keep you at that number. But we kind of think that the way the market's going to play out is going to allow us to retain you at a number lower than maybe that you want. Another point here before we get into some of our other players, Memphis, as well as some of these other teams that we'll talk about that we're looking at guys on, they're a team that you need to incentivize for now and for later. What I mean by that is you're likely going to have to send a first, I would say. But on the other side of it, you're also probably going to have to send a player who can, if not fill the same role as Aldama, at least fill a similar role and someone who can help them right now, because Memphis is in a position where they want to win playoff series, right? Like they have young talent, a young core that's been around for a little bit. They have Ja Morant back this season. Jaren Jackson, I think, is someone we'll probably talk about later as we talk about all-star reserves. And so they have guys that are ready to try to win now. And so to get rid of Aldama pre-deadline is not just about, the future assets you can acquire. It's, can we bring somebody else in along with that pick that we can get a little bit of that production or maybe all of that production while still setting ourselves up for the future. So Mark Stein today over at his Substack actually reported that the Sixers have received multiple trade offers from playoff teams for Guerschon Yabusele. And Gershon's going to become a really interesting swing piece in deals like this, where most of the deals we talk about will probably not be straight up like KJ Martin for this guy or Kelly Oubre for this guy, like these $7 to $8 million players. It's going to be a couple. And Guerschon at a $2 million valuation with the production that he's offering, and you're not tied down to him long term, there will be playoff teams that will be interested in him a bit. So I think in a potential Aldama trade, it would be interesting if the Sixers say, we're moving Yabu for him because you're getting something similar, but allowing yourselves to sign him long term rather than Yabu is probably going to leave in the summer for bigger payday.
So if Memphis is that spot where they're like, we're 95% sure Santi's going elsewhere next year, get someone like Yabu, give you maybe not the same production, but at least fill that role and get a pick back in it, might make sense for both teams. Because again, the Sixers would then have Santi's bird rights, restricted free agency, whereas with Yabu, they have none of that. So that would be why the Sixers would look at that. Yeah.
And if the Sixers were to acquire Aldama and Yabusele does have to go, a little bit younger. Not that, of course, we don't like Yabusele, but we also understand that there's a lot, as Mark Steinkow is telling us, saying that a lot of people out there have interest in Guerschon Yabusele. So the young piece that is Aldama, that would fit with the 76ers timeline overall as well. All right, well, we're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break, come back. Then we'll get to Kyle, Derek, and myself. We'll give our choices for one potential target for each of us for the 76ers going forward. We'll do that when we get back on this Monday. Another busy week, 4 games for the Sixers, back-to-back, starting tomorrow with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the Los Angeles Lakers. But first, quick break here on PHLY Sixers Podcast, presented by Bet365.
And we love to tell you guys about our good friends at TrueMark Financial.
Money.
Did all that holiday shopping leave you with a credit card balance that's weighing you down? As we've said on the show, certainly did for us, right?
Or you need to find a way to get to New Orleans because, reasons.
Hey, think about this. What if you could pay off that balance faster and with 0 interest until 2026? It's true. TrueMark Financial is offering 0 interest on balance transfers for 12 months. So all your payments can go toward reducing your balance and not just covering interest. As someone who's paid off loans and has a mortgage and whatnot, that is very valuable to not just be paying off interest all the time. I can tell you that from firsthand experience. Here's the play. Transfer your existing balance from another institution to a TrueMark Financial Visa credit card. Take advantage of this amazing offer, but hurry up. You have to apply by February 28th, 2025. So whether you're interested in rewards, cashback, or simply prefer a low rate for everyday purchases, TrueMark allows you to choose the credit card that best fits your everyday financial needs. So visit TrueMark.com/compare for full details and to apply today. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA. They're an equal opportunity lender. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to approval. 3% balance transfer fee applies. Standard rates apply after the promotional rate.
Maybe we can go out there and see the Sixers play the Pelicans at the same time. I don't know. Fix that, NBA. Do that now. All right, let me tell you about Bet365, our presenting sponsor, as always, here on the PHLY Sixers show. The big game is set, folks, and your team is playing in it. And one guy, as I'm looking right here on the app, I'm telling you the truth. I'm looking at the app right now as I'm peeking at it. And your quarterback is a Super Bowl MVP odd at plus 400. Pretty good numbers. He was fantastic. Maybe his second best game in his playoff career. Might be his first. I don't know, because it was the big game. And then you have the running back at plus 300 as well, because he is fantastic, as we know, as a big game MVP. So if you feel like, you know what, I want to get some early wagers in, the odds are in my favor right now. Let me jump at it, especially when your team is also not the favorite and you think they're going to win. They are a -1.5 dog right now to start things off, less than 2 weeks away from the big game. Well, if you're feeling good about your squad and you want to place that wager, you got to go to our good friends at Bet365, where they have over 90 million users worldwide pioneering live in-game betting. And I hope you did that during the game at Bet365, because they ran up some points. And if you wanted to bet on the quarterback, the running back, wide receiver in game to score a touchdown, maybe even the backup running back, because they put up so much points, you could have done so right there at Bet365 and take advantage of their, as I've been telling you guys, the early payout offer with the NFL. Your team goes up by 17. They cleared that early. 17 points. You would have been an early payout winner at Bet365. And breaking news from Bet365. Derek, breaking news. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit the $10, place a $5 bet, and you get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. All available for the big game, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on a Monday, presented by Bet365. Got to make some money at Bet365. Get in there early so you can do that with the big game coming up. All right, Kyle, you start us off, man, with...
I was going to say, who wants to step up to the plate, but I suppose it can be me.
Hand it off. Look at that assist.
All right. So each of us decided to pick wouldn't say a favorite target, but at least someone who's probably available for the right price, who fits the Sixers now and moving forward. And you can construct a realistic trade to go and get.
Right. And we obviously threw in Santi because that was Hedva's pick.
Yeah. Hedva, let's say co-producer of the show with Bree today. Co-credit for Hedva. Okay. So there were a couple Rockets names brought up in the chat. Certainly an admirer of Cam Whitmore and think he might be someone who's available as a buy low guy. Mm-hmm. If you are talking to me about a buy low guy, I think there is a pretty obvious candidate. I think there's a guy who also happens to be hurt right now. So if you're on the tanking side of things, probably won't play for another month and you want to just shut things down, now's the time to buy stock low. Someone who was a top 5 pick, a guy who brings some skills to the table that perhaps the Sixers could use a little better than Rockets can, and that is one Jabari Smith Jr. So let's be clear. Jabari Smith has been a disappointment relative to his draft position, right? And a lot of the fears that people had with him where he didn't have a lot of flexibility off the dribble, that he was settling for too many mid-range pull-ups or bad pull-ups, and he's not a true shot creator to be a foundational piece. I think those things are all true. And I think that's why he's potentially gettable for the Sixers right now, because the word out of Houston for, let's call it the last 9 months or so, has been that they're really trying to line up and make a big splash trade for a ready-made star, right? Like Kevin Durant's name was floated, I believe, last summer before Woj decided to pack it up and retire. I want to say he was the one who threw that out there. But I think in general, the Rockets are in the hunt for big name, big time star.
This year it's been Devin Booker since the slide happened with the Suns.
So Booker's in there. I think Giannis is always a name people talk about, but he's still in Milwaukee and winning plenty of games, so we'll see there. Anyway, Jabari Smith is not somebody, if you're making that type of trade, if a team is unloading a real star, that's not a guy you're rebuilding around. And so I don't think he serves a lot of value to, let's say you are Phoenix, Devon, and they end up trading Booker, Durant, whoever later on. Getting Jabari Smith back in return for those guys with a bunch of picks doesn't really meaningfully help you.
Right.
Where I think Jabari Smith needs to go is to a team that's a little more set up and trying to win now, a team that needs him to be a role player, which is really what he is in Houston right now, and a team that is going to be able to tap into the movement shooting that I think he can offer at his size without needing him to shot create for himself that often. I think the Sixers fit pretty well there. And I think if you look at it, the reason I brought up Yabu after we brought up Aldama, I think if you say as the Sixers to Houston, like, hey, we'll give you Yabu. He's been, frankly, a better shooter than Jabari this year, albeit as basically just a standstill guy and not someone who can come off screens and do anything interesting there. But we'll give you Yabu. We'll give you, I don't know, KJ Martin, who's a playable rotation guy, also helps the money match. Jabari Smith's making $9.7 million. And then we'll give you a first, and you add that first to your collection that you have. And that's even more ammunition to go out and get, again, make up names, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, any disgruntled star that's out there. I think that's an appealing pitch to them. And if you're the Sixers, you say, he's still got time left on his contract. He's someone that he doesn't have to have the same expectations in Houston here. And he's someone that I like the idea of a big movement shooter around this court, right? Like someone that you don't just use as pure pick and pop or just stand in the corner. I know that the results have not necessarily been there as of yet, but if I believe in anything with him, it's that ability at 6'10", 6'11" to come off a screen and hit some threes. And I do think he's a decent, up to like pretty good defensive player. He hasn't taken things off the table for them. They've been a really good defensive team this year. And so I think he checks a lot of boxes, and you take not a home run swing, but an upside swing on a guy who, while he was in a weak draft, I think at least had enough pedigree to say, this is a top 5, top 10 player in this class.
Yeah, he's weird because on the one hand, he's got flaws. We just talked about this with Kelly a little while ago that just drive me nuts. Like his passing, his general just overall feel for the game, especially offensively, would really, really, really frustrate me. On the other hand, I do agree that on a lesser role with lower expectations, like the shot, I trust both standstill and off movement. And defensively, I actually think he has a chance to be pretty decent. Not like game changing like some of his peers on Houston, but like I think he puts in good enough effort, has good enough, size and length. And I do think he can move his feet well enough where I think he can be a plus defender. Like I said, maybe not game changing, maybe not linchpin of your defense type, but I think he can be a versatile defender who shoots. The problem is his offense is just so far behind outside of that shot. His handle is weak. His passing is non-existent. His feel is not good. He's not, to me, anywhere close to a guarantee. And I have a feeling if Daryl is going to want to use up some of his picks or resources, he's going to want someone that I think he probably has a little more confidence in.
I agree.
But in terms of an upside play, and like I said, I think based on where he end up being drafted, top 3?
He's top 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, I expect him to be a linchpin, a foundational piece, a huge part of your offense. I don't think that's who he is. I don't think that's who he's ever really going to be. So maybe, like Kyle said, bring him into a better role would be good. I have my concerns, but I'm also like, he's a very young kid with a lot of upside that you can get relatively cheap. So I'm intrigued in that regard.
And before that injury, and this is the part about him that makes him just so weird, as you both just laid out, is that before the injury, he was playing really well, where he had a string there of games where he looked really, really good. And you're saying, all right, he's finally starting to put it together, because you could see it all there with the measurables, the intangibles there. Even with the loose handle that he has, it's not tight enough for as big as he is. You have to make sure, of course, that you're not Kevin Durant. Everybody 6'10" can't do that stuff. You can dribble, but you can't dribble like that. You can't do it that way. And that's where he has that really good stretch of about 10 games, but then he goes right back, of course, to the other parts that give you the pause of, I can't sit here and wait for this young guy while we're trying to contend right now in the immediate, especially with the Sixers group versus what the Houston team is finally getting it together with Ime Udoka. The Sixers are in a different place. Now, this year, the record is totally different, but again, healthy next year. You want him to be a part of it.
There's not enough wood in this room.
Fair enough. But if they're healthy next year, you want him to be plug and play right away and be that guy that you saw for maybe the 10 to 12 game stretch, and not the one that, yes, you can make up for the deficiencies that happen, the bad run that he's having. But do you have enough around to make up for that, to make sure that that's not problematic? The defense, if he can still be that type of player on the defensive end where he's taking a bit of a dive with the offense, you can get away with it because of Embiid and George and Maxey out there on the floor. But if he's your fourth guy, you want that to be somebody that, as Derek pointed out, that Daryl Morey absolutely trusts with that two-way type of player that he was drafted in the top 3-4. But it's a really good name because of everything that you're talking about, a top three player in that class, that it was warranted. It was warranted for that draft selection.
Yeah. And in terms of role player type stats, 38.1% on over 4 catch and shoot threes per game.
Yeah.
Pretty good numbers.
Yep.
Yeah. Someone who is built to be that fourth, fifth option in the lineup and be a more of a heavy lifter defensively. And by the way, because of his size, you can probably use him as a center at times, depending on the lineup.
Yep.
And you end up playing, let's say it's like Jabari, Paul George, Oubre, and maybe Caleb Martin. Like, it depends on what kind of outgoings would happen in this type of deal. And as I mentioned earlier, Jabari also is he's like right in the middle of a 4 to 8 week timeline on recovery from a hand injury. So you're likely not getting him on the floor until March, more than likely, at the end of February, at probably a best case scenario. So that could cut two ways. One, if you're someone who wants to go for it this year still, that's not great. But if you're someone who's like, hey, we want something for the future, but still tank, Jabari Smith fits perfectly within that purview.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Maybe we take the quick break here, come back and get to Derek and I, get our guys in there. Jabari Smith, good start. Santi Aldama, also a good start for where the Sixers are. Looking at these player options 2 weeks away from the NBA trade deadline. We're giving our thoughts. See, a lot of people in there also brought up your other guy. You mentioned my guy, Cam Whitmore. Someone also brought up your other Houston guy, Tari Eason, that you had your eye on.
Hey,
in the
that ain't happening at this point. That's
what I'm saying. The guy you had at the beginning of the year, that's why you pivot to Jabari Smith, because Tari Eason has been too good, along with you. We were talking before the show.
My guy, Amen Thompson. Our guy, Amen Thompson.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Both of them.
He ain't going anywhere.
That's sore either. He's not going anywhere either. All right, we'll come back. We'll get to those. Derek and I, our thoughts, get Kyle's thoughts on our picks as well, and yours when we get back here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Bet365. And one of the players that we continue to talk about, these new guys coming in, teaming up with Paul George, got a little pinky situation going on from the injury in the game at Chicago on Saturday. And immediately, if you need an MRI, I got to send you right to my folks at Rothman Orthopedics, whether it's your knee, ankle, hip, spine, pinky, whatever it is. Not pinky from Friday after next. We're talking pinky problems, pinky P, and the issues of getting him on the floor and trying to get these W's. Rothman Orthopedics, they proudly serve dozens of communities across Pennsylvania and New Jersey with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. They need a walk-in center for Paul George to get that pinky checked out. Patients will find Paul George, Pinky P, will find the full spectrum of orthopedic care at Rothman Orthopedics, from diagnosis to discharge. They provide the patients with every service and procedure necessary, such as the x-rays, orthopedics and bracings, MRIs, as mentioned, physical therapy, and much more. Year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country at over 60,000. And if the Birds playing in the big game need to make sure their offensive line, Derek, is straight, Rothman Orthopedics has you covered. Rothman Orthopedics, they specialize in orthopedics, and you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
And look, we want to make sure that you are looking and feeling your best about yourself, and Glatt can help you do that. Anyone can buy equipment and say they do hair restoration. Only Glatt Hair Restoration by Morgenstern Medical offers decades of proven results using an innovative approach delivered by leaders in the industry. Glatt Hair can help during all stages of hair loss, with leading-edge treatments for prevention and restoration, including laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, topical and oral medications, PRP and stem cell restoration, and hair restoration surgery. Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Caring patient advocates work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that this decision can be emotional and challenging, and they're here to help you make your experience simple and stress-free. Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit glatthairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast, presented by Bet365. All right, Derek, next up.
Yeah, and this was someone who I thought like halfway through the season wouldn't be available because he had been moved into a starting role. He'd been playing really well in that role. But there have been some reports, specifically from Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times, that the Bulls may be open to completely blowing
Blow
it
it up, baby!
3 years too late, but whatever, you do you. And that Buzelis is the only player not like that would be untouchable.
Yeah.
So because of that, he has moved back into a, someone that I would target. That's Ayo Dosunmu, just a really good, like 6'5", really good defender. And I think when you start talking about him, that's where you start. And he's a player who throughout the years has been a little up and down on terms of his shooting. This year, he's struggling from three, 33.6% from catch and shoot threes. Last year, that was 40%. The previous year, it was lower. So he's been on a little bit of a roller coaster, and I think that's going to, drive a lot of your opinion on him. But really, it's the defense. It's the perimeter defense, being able to get through screen, to move his feet, to defend a bunch of positions, something the Sixers just fundamentally do not have. I do think he's grown a little bit over the last year or two as, I don't want to say really like a playmaker, but just somebody who can attack a closeout and make good decisions. Every now and then run a pick and roll, certainly more than he could earlier on in his career. I think he's grown in that, but it's really more of a secondary playmaker, off-ball shooter, and just real pest defensively. And I think the Sixers just need that archetype in the worst way.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about right now or over the years to come, and I believe Ayo is a free agent after next year.
He's got one more, yeah.
He's at $7 million this year, 7.5 next year, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. But if you're a big believer in Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain as guys who will be linchpins for this organization moving forward, you probably need to get somebody in the mix with them in the backcourt who offsets their size or offers some real defensive punch and takes responsibility out of their hands to a certain extent on defense. And I say that having been very impressed with the step forward Maxey has taken this season. I think if Maxey can be in a role where you utilize his activity and his speed and play into that, and have somebody like an Ayo Dosunmu do the tougher assignment type of stuff, chasing guys around ball screens, fighting through picks, going over the top of screens.
Yep.
That's an ideal scenario for either Tyrese or Jared when he eventually comes back next season. So I like Ayo quite a bit. I think, as Derek brought up, the big question with him is the same big question that it's been since before he entered the league, right? And that's the jump shot. And you really do need to ride the roller coaster with him. If you feel confident as a staff, as an organization, that you can build him up as a shooter. I don't know if he needs a complete rebuild of the shot or it's just like some small mechanical tweaks or what it is with him. But if you feel good about your ability to eventually turn a guy into a shooter over the long term, then I think he's absolutely somebody you should be inquiring on the price. I think the one problem with him is that there will probably be a decent amount of competition for him because I think he's someone teams probably view as like he could help us right now for a playoff run. And it's not, he's not a project. He's not something like, yes, there are things he has to do, but he has a clear defined skill set right now. And he's on a team friendly deal, someone you can either keep over the long term or flip his contract next year. So there would be competition for him, but I really do like him as a potential target.
And Fusion asked, what do you think about his shot mechanics? Well, I mean, we see a lot of people that have bad shot mechanics, can't make shots, but also are afraid to take the shots. He's not afraid to take the shots. We saw that on Saturday against the 76ers where he had no issue taking. He knocked a few down. He's going to go and miss a lot because he's not all that great yet. But you guys talked about that. But the other piece, too, outside of the size next to both McCain and Maxey is with McCain out this year and you still need help, if they're trying to make that push, he is someone that, as the guys have talked about a lot, you don't have to put the other veterans on the floor because he's going to jump right ahead of them as far as the rotation goes. So with him being someone who can handle the ball, run an offense, he has done that with so many games missed from Lonzo Ball and others, Kobe White with the Chicago Bulls. He has been a steady guy that can get out there on the floor. He's tough, physical, and he will dig in and not afraid of the defense. And when you do have him out there on the floor with the other wings, two of the three, whoever's out there, that's a pretty darn good guy to have out there where you don't lose much with his defensive prowess while those other two are out there. The other one is on the bench, and you still have that player that can also, who is still very young, that can move along with the Sixers franchise next to Tyrese Maxey and McCain going forward.
Just turned 25.
Yep. So good name, really good name there. All right, for me, it's one that we've talked about in the summer. I saw his name pop up. Ramid brought him up, and mine was Cam Johnson from the Nets. He's 28 now. He'll be 29 in March. He has 2 years remaining on his deal, makes $20.5 next season and $22.5 in 27-28. He is a career 39.6 three-point percent shooter from beyond. And this year, I believe it is right at 41.
He's having a great shooting season. Great season in general.
Second on the team in scoring with 19 points, 35 games played in their 46, I believe, that they've played. He played 35. And he's also grabbing 4 boards, 3 assists out there for Cam Johnson. He's played on a finals team with the Phoenix Suns where he was a big part of that rotation, hit big shots during that run. And it's just a guy who he can put the ball on the floor when you close out because you have to close out. The guy makes 40% of his three-point shots. So when he's out there, of course, stretching the floor with the other 3, as we've talked about, everybody that we've looked at is also pairing them or partnering player X with those 3, stretching the floor, as we talked about so much this offseason. That is a guy who can shoot the lights out. And when we were watching the game one day, Rich and I did when we were here, and then the Nets game when they were there, he was just pulling up, and we were like, that's going in. Every time he rose up, it looks like coming off his fingertips, that's going in. And when you have the type of space that he would have next to these 3, you saw it with the Phoenix Suns during their run. And even now with this bad Nets team, he finds, though, when we look at the Eric Gordon stuff that he's doing, 28, 20, 27, 28, maybe 30 feet away from the basket. He has that range at 6'8", 6'9", and he also just fills out that great 6'9", 6'8", 6'9" frame on the other end. Not a great defender, but when you do put him next to other really good defenders, he will give the effort. He does dig in. He's not the best, but when he's around others, you don't really see it as much because he does attempt to engage and defend, dig in and get there. Will block some shots at the rim from time to time. He'll turn the ball over on the offensive end, not in a bad way. When I'm talking about trying to attack the basket and dunk on you, he will do that, as witnessed in that playoff series against the Nets 2 playoffs ago when he dunked on Embiid here in Philadelphia. So that type of player, Kyle, is one that we talked about him a lot in the offseason, and rightfully so for his outstanding shooting.
Yeah, so really the issue with Cam Johnson is not the player, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a clear, defined skill set that it feels like certainly offensively is a hand-in-glove fit with what you'd want next to Joel Embiid and these other guys, assuming that Joel ever plays and it's not the human handstand machine. That's neither here nor there for now.
Pretty good handstands, though.
Wow. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The big problem with Cam Johnson is the amount of money he's making and the difficulty of constructing a trade for him, both financially and because of the competition you would have for him on the trade market. So he's at $22.5 million this year. It declines next season to $20.5 million, back up to $22.5 million in 2026, 27. So it's nice to have the 2 extra years, right? You get 2 years of cost controlled, what you think will be high level production from a shooter. There are also, and Derek has a better handle of this, I believe there are some unlikely incentives in his contract that probably messes with the salary number for as it applies to the apron and some other things. So you have to take that into consideration as you trade for him. And as we know, the Sixers navigate the luxury tax and whatnot. The bigger problem on top of that, because that would probably require what? Off napkin math is like KJ, Kelly Oubre, and Drummond, I think, to get to 22.5.
I think you need even more than that. I have to double check.
It's somewhere in that neighborhood. And so that's a problem. But there are also teams who are probably willing to offer more than you are right now, right? Like I think
Including
Cam
the future
Johnson,
picks.
I think Cam Johnson as of now is probably a multiple first round picks guy. And I'm just not willing to give up more than a first round pick unless it is a guy that I am a slam dunk believer in as a two-way player. Cam Johnson is not that guy for me. I think a team that is, if I thought the Sixers were, if we had a normal Joel Embiid season, if I thought that they had real contention chances right now, I would be a little more willing to say, you know what, pony it up, offer an extra first, go get a guy who really adds to a potential run this year as well as gives you another 2 years. When I'm not saying the season's completely over, but I'm saying we've mostly written off, hey, this is a contender this year. I think giving up 2 firsts in that situation is borderline malpractice.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's on the one hand, it is tough to get to that 22.5 number. The 3 Kyle mentioned in Kelly, KJ, and Andre would only be 20.6 million. So you have to add a little more on top of that.
That's like Yabu on top of that, which then it's like, Jesus, why are you trading for the guy?
And again, because the Sixers are over the first apron, they cannot take back more salary in a trade. So you have to send out more than 22.5. It gets tough to construct that. But my bigger concern is what Kyle mentioned. 1 first round pick, because not only are you getting him now, you're getting him for the next 2 years. He's a good fit theoretically if Embiid gets back on the floor. 2 first round picks I could not do. And I just wonder as we get closer to the trade deadline, because it doesn't seem like there's a ton of wings out there, is somebody going to cave and give them 2 first round picks? Mm-hmm. And if they only get 1 first round pick, does Brooklyn just go like, all right, well then we got him on a contract for 2 more years. Let's go into the summer and see if maybe the market's a little more ripe. So yeah.
Well,
very anticlimactic again. So yeah,
my concerns are that I'm not overpaying for Cam Johnson.
Yeah. Well, forget both. I
worry that somebody is going to
forget you guys. I'm disappointed in both of you for not agreeing.
It's a guy that you have to bring up because I think of I think he's probably saved Jimmy Butler and the guys who are in the orbit of a Jimmy Butler trade, Chris Middleton, Bradley Beal. Those are not guys that the Sixers are going to be in the mix for.
Yeah.
Cam Johnson, I think, is the biggest available name who you could say they should make a move for, or at least like make the case for them trading for him.
Especially when you bring up big names like that to make the case for it, is that we also, as you bring up all the things that Daryl Morey likes, Daryl Morey also likes to go after big names that can help out his team. Now, we did that in the summer. He did that. But that's a big name for what we're talking about on the level that is not Middleton, Beal, Butler, those guys. He's just under that tier.
My concern is he's having a career year, not just a little bit, like by far, shooting the ever-living heck out of the ball. If it ends up costing you 2 first-round picks, but he comes here Next year, he shoots 38% from three, which is still good.
Still good.
And he's shooting or averaging 14 per game because he's getting fewer touches. All of a sudden now his value is probably back down to 1 first-round pick, and you're out of pick, and which is still fine as long as Joel Embiid's on the court and dominating. But if he's not, it's really hard to pivot. I would still like to keep as many of those picks as I can for a bigger swing, possibly even a franchise pivoting swing. And using up 2 of the picks would be tough for me to do.
Yeah, well, I agree. Even though I brought up Cam Johnson.
Well, I mean, to be clear, like when we were doing this exercise, I brought up 3 names, and one of them was Cam Johnson too. Like Kyle said, he had to be discussed. Yeah. Part of the discussion, though, is like I think some team might end up overbidding for him.
Yeah. Look, if you get to the deadline and there are no buyers, and Brooklyn is actually willing to move him for a first, I think you have to look long and hard at it. I do think it would be hard to field enough depth to have an actual team at that point. Especially because, you know, if you keep Caleb, for example, he's been in and out of the lineup all year. There's just a lot of different variables you have to weigh to make that deal.
KJ and Drummond have both been on the sideline a lot this season.
Oh, no. But it's also in part with KJ and Drummond, you have salary. You can use that salary next year in a trade. If you trade for Cam, you have pretty much, there's no way to get actual matching salary anymore. You've got your big 4, well, big 5, we'll include McCain, but he's not a matching salary. You've got your big 3 plus Cam, and if Cam depreciates in value, it's real hard to then make future moves.
Yep.
That's my biggest, that, and it seems like he goes through periods where he doesn't really care about defense. But I think he's pretty good defensively when he's locked in. It's just, or at least adequate. If he's your 4th or 5th best defender, I think you're in an okay spot. It's just, it seems like he fluctuates.
And the one knock, he does miss games.
Yes.
He does miss games.
Well, he'll fit right in.
Yes. Yes, he would. Yes, he would. All right. Those are our 3 from Jabari Smith to Ayo Dosunmu.
3 plus 1.
Cam Johnson plus Santi
equals
Aldama.
4.
Yeah.
Equals
Quick
4
maths.
to start things off. For some of our trade deadline discussion, we'll certainly have more once we get closer to the deadline. Things start to pop up. We'll get some information. You'll see reports all over the place. There's buzz
we could be
everywhere.
back in emergency podcast season. We haven't done one of those in a minute.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So those are there. Notes today though. Practice. They were off on Sunday.
Pain, suffering, doom, gloom. Those are the notes.
Those are the notes from practice today. Should we get to the hand? You brought up the handstand. I mean,
so
Joel Embiid.
There were 2 major-ish, I should say, major points of concern going into Sixers practice today. What is Joel Embiid's status? What is Paul George's status? So the first thing we see as we walk into the gym is Joel Embiid contesting Tyrese Maxey jumpers with handstands on the floor.
Outside of the box thinker, man. He's trying to find new ways to alter shots.
Just whatever you want to say about it. And the sequence of events is we see that Sixers PR comes over. We get the rundown from practice. So we hear Joel, among a couple others, was a partial participant in practice. And the Sixers at that point declined to say like, oh, we don't know whether he'll play tomorrow or Wednesday against the Lakers or Kings. And it's like, oh, so here we go. So there's the initial. Bree pulled this up. There's the first handstand. And here comes the second handstand with Tyrese shooting.
That was a pretty good contest.
There were many more, or not many more. There were several more after that. I only filmed a couple because I thought that made the point that it needed to. So after the Sixers give the initial report to us saying we don't know, 2 or 3 minutes later, they come right back and say, actually, Joel's not playing either game Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't know how much you guys care individually about him doing handstands. I think it's a great example for him and the organization of like, can you please just help yourselves not being stupid in front of the public? And like, it just feels like you're kind of waving it in people's faces, right? There is a ton of justified frustration over Joel's health and his inability to get on the floor and everything that's going on with him right now. And if you want to do a handstand in the company or in the privacy of your own home, maybe you can do it there. When you're in front of the cameras and media, maybe just act like a normal basketball player working his way back to try to get on the floor, because I know he's doing that, but all the public sees is that little snippet at the end of practice where you just look like a clown and you're not going to play the next 2 games. It's just stupid. There's no reason to do it. Save it for your own time. The other update that we got, or partial update, I should say, was that Paul George did not practice.
Yep. Still,
because he was still stuck in the Eagles celebration traffic.
No, he was there. He was at practice.
He was at practice, had a wrap or a splint or something on the pinky finger.
You can see it on this.
And the thing that set
wheel.
Derek and I both off at practice was the Sixers said his MRI was still being evaluated as if
Rothman Orthopedics, man.
As if it was being don't drag Rothman into this.
No.
I'm about to disparage these bozos.
Go there.
I was gonna say, geez, Rothman catching strays. They're trying to tell me that he got an MRI yesterday. And they're just like, well, we sent it via telegram across the world, and the Pony Express
stuck on the Oregon Trail with.
They're taking it out west to the doctor that needs to see it. It's like, brother, Devon was talking before the show. He's gotten many MRIs. Our Mr. Rothman Orthopedics over here,
Mr. Glass,
same day results on those MRIs, and this guy who is, I said to Devon, no offense to you, a much higher priority to get MRI results for. And it's just a big old mystery what's going on with his hand. Like, get out of my face with this nonsense, man. Tell me if his hand is screwed up or not, and let's keep it moving.
Yeah. I will say, for the most part, I am not upset that Joe is missing these next 2 games, because I think what we've seen with Embiid is when his knee is most susceptible to swelling is when he's had time off. So if you're going to tell me he needs a couple of practices to ramp himself back up,
said it. He's on the ramp.
I can't not. You can't. It's like it's stuck in my brain. I use ramp anyway. I can get on board with that. I can absolutely get on board with that. And, he was a partial participant in practice today, which is a big step forward and important. They said that the treatments are good. That's all great. Just don't do handstands. Like it really is just a perception problem at this point. The Paul one annoys me admittedly more. Like there's no way they don't have a good sense of what those MRIs say and suggest and the best course forward. Why are we not getting an update, a proper update? It's just, it's frustrating for sure.
Handstands and cartwheels, man. It's been a lot of fun going on this season with this basketball team. So
fun, yeah, that's a word you could use.
There you go.
Just make sure he doesn't bowl. That's all I ask. No bowling.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Can't bowl.
No. Is this worse than bowling in that we're all seeing it and we saw it in real time?
Well, no, because he didn't get hurt. If he got hurt doing the cartwheels, maybe.
Are we sure he didn't?
Look, bowling's pretty bad.
Good times. Good times.
Just Joel, please, just shoot the basketball or just normal contests for Tyrese's post practice. I don't know what else to say to you, buddy. Like it just help the public feel for you in some way, shape, or form. It just seems so stupid to do this.
When we were talking about last week, will Josh Harris read the room? They didn't have a chance to read the room because they got blown out. But
thank God for that.
Read the room, man. Just don't do stuff. Everybody's in there now. Don't do that. You know the cameras are turning your way now. You're on the floor. Don't do that.
It was a nice victory celebration tweet the Sixers sent toward the Eagles, right? Nice congratulations.
As they always do.
Again,
well, they actually do usually.
They
do
always
that.
do.
Yeah.
Even before the game, they do it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about, again, not understanding.
Reading the room.
Look, you can make the on paper case like, oh, he owns Josh Harris owns the Commanders. It makes sense that the Sixers would not, but no, you are a Philadelphia team. You are the steward of a Philadelphia team, and the Eagles just punched their ticket to go to the Super Bowl. And
we are 24 hours, almost 24 hours away from the game being done. And they still, at least I haven't checked.
Well, they're not going to now. There's no reason to
it's
now.
just ridiculous.
They'll send something before the Super Bowl is when they'll make
in
up
2
for
weeks.
It.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
cool.
look, honestly, this fascinates me. I want to know where this directive came to, because there's no way the social media person was just like, well, I forgot. Like that clearly didn't happen.
It's ridiculous.
Did this come from the top? Did they just assume that Josh wouldn't want a congratulations tweet sent out? I'm actually legitimately curious.
Insane. Even him. He should be able to take it a little bit on the. All right, cool. All right, I understand. You own 2 other teams, the Devils and Washington. Now, You just got to deal with that, man. That comes with the territory of you doing that. You're going to get booed. You're going to get heckled when you're sitting in the box up there. The fans are going to give it to you. You got to take that one. That's just the bottom line. I don't care. You have to take that when you sign up for that. You got to take it.
That's it.
That's the bottom line.
That's exactly right. He signed up
You
for this,
did
right?
that.
This is
Sell the
you
team.
made your bet. If you don't want to deal with what comes with owning a Philadelphia sports franchise and the Commanders and the Devils, you shouldn't own all three. What your responsibility for the Sixers is all that it entails owning the Sixers, the same as it is with the Commanders, same as it is with the Devils. And with the Sixers, it might just be a silly PR thing. It's just a tweet. It's just a post. But it's a reflection of not understanding why people get mad at you for owning the Commanders in the first place. Because it makes them feel that and I think they're right on this, by the way, but they would deny this. Mm-hmm. It makes the fans feel that the Sixers aren't as important, that the Commanders are the priority. And you allow this perception to grow and grow and grow. And that's why people get mad. Like I said my whole thing on ownership with ZB and Bo last week on that bonus episode we did, but like you got to help yourselves. You got to just do the stuff that's just like, this is a no-brainer. The Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. The city's really excited. Embrace that with them. If that means that Josh Harris has to have a slightly sadder helicopter ride back to New York, he's just got to deal with that. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, and this is not a case where the Crunkies and they have the Rams and the Nuggets. That's totally different. That is totally different, man. You have rivals. You decided to go buy rivals, the Devils and Washington. It's not Dallas, it's not New York, but guess what? People hate them too. And you were playing them in the conference championship, and now you can't tweet out something because your feelings might be hurt? Come on, man, stop. You bought that team. You put yourself in that position. And there's a possibility that this can happen. Not only once, but going forward, because that quarterback is damn good. And if they're going to be in that spot again, you cannot expect the Sixers to not do what they've always done before you bought them. And when you did buy them, that you still give props to your other teams. We are all in this together is what you guys always say. You are not. What did you do on Friday? When was it Friday? Yeah, Friday. Brandon Graham was sitting courtside. Wasn't he on a Jumbotron being introduced as Brandon Graham from the Philadelphia Eagles? Damn right he was. He was. What's the difference? Do it.
I have not seen Devon this upset since Die Hard.
It makes no sense.
I will say this.
You also have to have a little bit, as you said, buying into. You got to have just a little bit of sense of humor to take that. Correct. Just to take a little bit of sense of humor. You can say, all right, guys, that's enough, all that. But it has to be done. Because it's not about you. It's about, as you always talk about, the city of Philadelphia and their fan base. This is part of the fan base.
You can't pick and choose what you get.
4-for-4, as Anthony has always said. 4-for-4. There are some who stray away, of course, but the majority is a 4-for-4. You have to allow them to continue to be on board with it, and that is just downright wrong to not have them a part. The organization tweet out as you always do. Franklin does it. I haven't checked, but I don't know if Franklin did it. I haven't seen it, and it's a disgrace that they don't.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's extraordinarily unlikely that after that game, Josh Harris sent a command down like, hey, no way we're congratulating the Eagles. I think it's more there's probably uncertainty about it. And so the people who are in charge of such things are like, we're just not going to touch it. But I think that reflects the problem, right? That should be something that if you're someone running social, if you're the people who are like Sixers content team, that should be the easiest thing in the world. You shouldn't have to second guess yourself on that. And that's a problem.
I would agree.
And you had a whole week to figure this out. A week.
I would agree. It's probably unlikely that Josh actually said something, but you could certainly read based off past interactions and his personality what you think the right course of action would be, and that would be the concern.
Just wrong. Blitzer, I don't know where it came from, but if it came from somewhere, it's still wrong. It's about Philadelphia, not just you. All right, we got to tell the people on the TV side, we appreciate everybody for hanging out with us here.
It's not like we're asking Josh Harris to send a personalized tweet.
No, absolutely not. You can say, hey, Josh, that was a pretty good game. on the TV side. Thanks everybody for hanging out. If you're continuing with the show, we got our All-Star Reserves coming up. allphly.com is where you need to be. We appreciate it. All right.
And you snuck that in because I almost screwed you up completely. That was some good stuff.
Thank you, sir.
Devon can read a clock.
All right, let's get to first of all, let's get to our All-Star Reserves. The All-Star Reserves will be announced on Thursday, as always. After the starters are announced, Bree, can we get the starters up there first to let everybody know in case they don't know? The starters were announced last Thursday. The starters out west, Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the backcourt. In the front court, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Nikola Jokic. Not much of a surprise there. Then you have in the Eastern Conference, in the backcourt, Jalen Brunson along with Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Giannis in the front court, along with Karl Anthony Towns. And Kyle, before I get to the reserves, one guy who will not be a part of that, the news just dropped.
I was about to say,
I know you got to say it, so just go ahead and say it because he will not be on the All-Star team.
Jimmy Butler has been suspended indefinitely by the Miami Heat.
2 weeks from now, we'll see if he's still part of that organization, but we do know he's not going to be on the All-Star team.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler's going to be hanging out in Scottsdale for a little bit.
I honestly think it's fascinating, like, because
that's why he's the winner over James Harden, man.
They are so stubborn. Like both of them, like Riley's stubborn, Jimmy's stubborn. If they don't get something they like, I could see them just sending him home for the rest of the season. Like
here's the thing. So that is part of why James Harden gets his way. I'm not sure Jimmy's getting his way here. So we have to weigh what ends up happening there with the Cowboys.
They will not take on
who's the best trade requester of all time.
He's on a good run.
I can't wait to see. Oh, we're getting further.
He walked out.
All right, here we go.
All right,
this is from Shams.
Let's break it down.
Jimmy Butler walked out of Heat shoot-around this morning after being informed the team is planning not to start him with Haywood Highsmith.
Jimmy, I'm with you, Jimmy.
Starting moving forward. Sources tell ESPN. Jimmy is really something,
Sources say he said Hayward Highsmith over me.
So what's better?
Then led the second team to a victory in practice.
That's what I'm saying. Is that better, the second team victory in practice, or just simply saying, screw that, Hayward Highsmith over me, I'm walking out?
You gotta.
I love it.
He's changing the playbook.
You gotta respect on a sick level.
It's like
Spo and Pat Riley
range.
just feel like,
oh man,
we're gonna have a measuring contest here. Mine's bigger. That's what Pat Riley's saying right now.
All right.
This is great.
Jimmy
I love this.
Butler, man. Legend. All over again. Just a legend.
Again, until I see Fat Suit Butler, I still give James Harden the edge in trade requests.
But Jimmy never had a case of ever being fat. Where James Harden has had a case of he's not coming into shape in the camp and all that stuff.
James got out of there without ever being demoted, by the way. That's nobody had the balls to challenge James Harden on, hey, you're going to come off the bench.
Was Morey still there?
No. So he left and
he had left already.
The new guys to deal with.
Right. It was Stone.
James Harden.
Yeah, it was Stone and all those guys. You're absolutely right. Oh, Jimmy, I love it, man. I can't wait to see how this plays out.
The drama
over the next 2 weeks.
Anyway, back to All-Star.
Let's get to the All-Stars. We gave you the starters. We picked our reserves, and none of us know who we selected. Bree put a great, of course, graphic together to go with the reserves. I'm sure we have some honorable mentions that we'll talk about who did not make it. Let's get to the reserves that we have for the All-Stars that will be announced on Thursday. This is our only show this week at 3 p.m. We have games tomorrow and Wednesday. No show on Thursday. So let's get to our reserves of who we have. All right, Kyle. Look at that. We got starting right away. We have four. We got four.
We had Derek and I had the exact same. Or do we? Is Devon the only one?
I'm the only one.
Is that Jalen Johnson?
That is Jalen Johnson.
All right, I'm just trying to look at the
pictures.
pictures.
Jalen Johnson.
And I promise you, none of us talked about this.
This was a blind. We all submitted these to Bree. So
we know each other. We're like-minded here on these because we know how each other thinks. All right, Evan Mobley,
universal. I think the leap forward's been great. He's an incredible two-way player.
So important for the
I also
defense.
want to reward. We all have Darius Garland as well.
Yep.
And I think the mindset from all three of us is you want to reward good players, but also good players on great teams. And so Garland and Mobley were two of the easiest candidates for me to.
And
to
remember,
throw up
folks,
there.
it's 2 guards, 3 front court players, and 2 wild cards for the coaches to vote of the players that they want. So, it doesn't matter the numbers, of course, but if you want to go to two guards, we all went with Cade Cunningham and Darius Garland as the two guards. Two front court for sure are Mobley, Siakam from the Indiana Pacers.
Siakam was one I debated, but you have to go 3 front court. And I was like, Jaylen Brown was the easier one.
But Jaylen Brown also on their website, he's a shooting guard. Based on how they do it, right?
He's a forward.
Hey, listen, I'm just saying, I agree with you, right? I agree with you, but they have him as a shooting guard.
So you went Jalen Johnson over Trae Young. That's a really interesting one.
I did. I went over him because of the things that he has to do as a double guy in the front court for him. I think you brought him up, Derek, in the preseason as one of your surprise players for the season, and for him to come in with this team being much improved than what they were last year, him taking the leap as being the number 2 guy behind, without even a question, being the number 2 guy behind Trae Young for what he has done this season, averaging a double-double, the defense on the other end, the shooting numbers being really good as well. While he's not at 20 points, he's right there, like 18, 19 with his 10 rebounds for the season. I just thought he's been phenomenal. He's played more than enough games to qualify for that nod for me over Trae Young, and that's why I went with Jalen Johnson in that particular spot. Will it happen? Probably not, because of the
I think Trae's getting that spot pretty easily.
Yeah, and
when you're leading the league in assists, like, you're generally going to get that.
Yeah. But I went with him because they were going to have one representative, and I just thought he was worth, of course, that spot.
No, he's taking a very good lead. And he's another one where, like, if he gets that shot a little more reliable, like, the upside is tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But his playmaking leap, I think, has been really significant.
The rest of them were pretty straightforward, though, right? So we all had Mobley, we all had Garland, we all had Jaylen Brown, Cade Cunningham, Siakam, and Dame. And so that's probably a good way to segue into none of us had Maxey.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was as simple as, like, I thought those guards were all either comparable or better, and their record's better, and they're just the guys I'd rather reward.
The first 2 months were just not good enough.
Yeah. So I think Maxey's in the group right after this group, if you're looking at the guards, right?
Just in general. The 2 Orlando guys, if they stayed healthy, would have been
I would have probably given Franz
27 games, but still he got hurt, so that knocked him out.
I would have given Franz Siakam's spot, I think, if he had stayed healthy and kept the production up. And LaMelo was the other guy you considered. Like, the numbers are great, but they suck. And I also am just not in love with the way he plays. Like, he's one where we have this discussion on the show. I feel like Derek and I have friction on when and how much to include winning and, like, All-Star and MVP and things like that. I think LaMelo is a case of, like, part of the reason they're bad is the way he plays. Like, part of the reason he puts up the numbers he does is that he just plays like Pete Maravich in 2025. So that was why I said, no, thank you. I'll take somebody like Dame over him.
I thought about Tyler Hero also, because I knocked Bam out.
He's been pretty good,
but I put Tyler Hero as an honorable mention guy.
Bam has not been. I would not put Bam anywhere close to this.
No, and if they were gonna take one of them, it had to be him.
Yeah,
Tyler Hero with his numbers. Paolo and Franz, of course. You wondered, of course, if the Knicks had been a little different, if they went OG or Kale with one of those, or Josh Hart, one of those spots. But just while they had a great run with that stretch, they were really, really good. They've also had enough games where they fell backwards, where they were out.
Yeah. No, LaMelo, if LaMelo played like 6 or 7 more games, he was the one I would have really struggled with.
Mm-hmm. What do you have, like 29, 30 games?
30,
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to the West and see where.
And let's see how
close we are on this side for the West.
All right, I'll have. Let's see, that's 3, 4. Is it only? All right, we have 5 matches. I think
5 where we matched. Yeah. Okay.
I'm the only guy who said Norm Powell, baby. Norm Powell highs.
I mean, he was on my honorable mention.
Yeah, he's on there. But
what's he averaging, like 24 a game 24? Or something like that?
He's been going crazy.
Now, 24, but now the assist and rebounds and stuff is not there.
So you have Harden on there. And that I think is an interesting thing, right? Like, I think part of why someone like Norm Powell would have success, as we've seen when James Harden plays with guys, is that James Harden, as a setup guy, is a big time floor raiser, right? Like he will get the most out of guys who can shoot the ball. So I absolutely think if you put James Harden on an all-star roster over him, I was sort of the mindset, like I'd like to reward somebody like Norm Powell. The Clippers have been a surprise. They've been much better than expected. And he's having by far his best ever season. Yep. He's making he's taking 8 threes a game, making 43% of them, basically scoring 24 points a game. That is on a team that people had no expectations for. So I think one of him or Harden should make it. It's really...
He is on a personal Paul George revenge tour of addition by subtraction is what he says, by him taking Paul George's place in the lineup. He has been fantastic, but I thought...
And Derek said, neither of those guys, get him out of here.
I thought legacy thing...
I would have gone Harden over.
And I thought I went...
Just because of he's the one... Like
he's the driver.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they do legacy stuff. Like if Steph wasn't voted in, Steph was probably still going to get in because he's Steph Curry.
Yeah.
And the coaches kind of lean towards that legacy stuff. But all right, so we all agree Jalen Williams getting his first nod, best team in the league, or certainly out west, and you get 2 of those.
In a weird way, he's really helped by Chet's injury. Because like at some point you go like, well, how many do you want from the same team? You don't have to worry about that now.
But if we did go like 3 from the Cleveland Cavaliers, we probably would have picked those 3.
Yeah.
If Chet had stayed healthy and played at the level he was at, I would have put 3 under on the team.
Jalen Williams we agreed on. Anthony Edwards, even though the season has not been an Anthony Edwards last year type season, still gonna be in the All-Star game as well. Anthony Davis has been phenomenal for the Lakers when he's played, and they are in the top 4 in the West, so he's going to be in there. Jaren Jackson Jr., John Moran has not played enough games, so he's going to get the nod. And Victor Wembanyama, he has just taken that leap that we all expected. Even better, because we talked about...
he's been, like I made fun of people before the year who I thought were getting putting the cart before the horse on him, but he's been outstanding.
Yes, he has.
Frankly, probably had a case to start the game, but that's a conversation for another podcast. Okay, so the guys we did not agree on, we talked about the Powell versus Harden. I had Şengün.
Yep. Kyle, I took him out. I have him my honorable mention. I had him there, and I said I'm taking him out because we have like 5 big men.
Yeah.
It was the weird thing, right? Like, so in the East, I thought there weren't really enough front court guys. I almost thought there were too many in the West. Like I saw Derek pick Sabonis. I think he's a perfectly acceptable
and it really
all-star
came
selection.
Down to Sabonis for Şengün for me.
Yeah. And Şengün is just, he's been super productive. He's been, I'd say like the lead offensive player for that Rockets team that's been in the
especially
second or third seed for most of the year, and is the guy that they play through at the end of games. I think he's a really good playmaker for center position. So him and Sabonis are similar in that way, but just a do-it-all offensive guy on a very good team, and I think he's earned it.
Don't disagree. Thought he should have made it 2 years ago. Not last season. I thought or at least he was in that conversation to make it 2 years ago. I think it was year 2 for him, and he was fantastic that year. He's been amazing again this year. They have the number 2 seed out west.
Very, very good team.
And he is the one. So when I say consistent, I did go Jalen Green over him because all the trade conversation, all those things, and the way that he has stepped up and taken on that level.
He's been on a tear
play.
recently, man.
And when you play hot like that, a lot of times you get rewarded because of what the stretch is that you have going into these voting things. They don't ignore the other parts, but they certainly look at it. And I leaned him at the guard position over Şengün, and one of them has to be there. Bottom line, I mean, for the
Rockets have to get
they have to have one, and one of those 2 are there, and they've just been very good. Why did you leave one of them off? Over Booker, and you honestly, the Sabonis part is easy, but the Booker piece
over Sabonis wasn't easy because it really came down to him for Şengün.
No, that's what. But that's
and I kind of wanted to reward Şengün just because of how much they're overachieving. But I do think that Sabonis is just having a slightly better season, and because none of us really included Fox, because of the way they've turned it around a little bit of late, he's just a little more of a realized version of what I think Şengün will be. But that was tough. I could have gone either way, to be honest.
Not enough spots out west, man.
Yeah. No. And I don't even really love Sabonis because, like, defensively, I think he's pretty bad. I don't really know what he's going to do offensively, like do you really want him leading an offense in the playoffs? There's a lot of questions I have with Sabonis, but he's having a good season again. He's putting up numbers.
Very productive player.
Very productive.
None of these guys are like, oh my God, I can't believe you'd put him on an all-star roster, right? To your point about the West, like no Devin Booker for me, no James Harden for me. Both those guys are guys
Booker was my other last guy.
Yeah.
I didn't feel great. I do not feel great having two Phoenix Suns on the All-Star team.
I knocked him off for Green.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knocked him off for Green just because, again, when we talk about OKC having 3 or Cleveland having 3, they're the number 2 seed.
Yeah.
Somebody has to represent them in the West. Also, honorable mention for me, Kyrie Irving played a lot of games, averaging 24 for them, keeping them afloat while Luka has been out. And
it is weird having all-star teams. We don't have any Embiid, no Luka, like none of that.
Yeah,
it's weird.
And Ja Morant just didn't qualify game-wise.
Yeah. You could have talked me into any of Kyrie, Booker, Harden. Like there are a bunch of guards that I think are playing at a high level. So
and Fox.
Fox is the other one for sure.
Yep. Absolutely. So
that really is effed up. I didn't put a single Houston Rocket on my team.
No, you did not. That's what I said.
That's really fucked.
I said, how you leave?
Really screwed up. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's a bad take.
Many deserving of it, just not enough spots out west.
I blame Devon. We didn't have enough prep time on that.
My bad.
That is true. Like
that is
I was having my morning coffee. Hey, send in the all-star reserves.
I'm like, Devon, I got to leave in a half an hour for practice. So that's my excuse.
It's a good coffee exercise, though. You know.
Listen, I basically had an idea in my mind of who I wanted. Yeah. It was just
it's an idea. It's the last 2 spots or last even 3 or 4 spots, which like I would probably debate in my head for like hours.
Yeah.
I had 10 minutes to debate. So
yeah.
All apologies to every Houston fan watching this show. I will do better next time.
Anybody you would replace in the starting lineups? Like Curry, of course, is voted in.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant is voted in. LeBron is voted in. Would
probably
you?
I mean, if you're just talking about pure,
I'm just talking
this
pure
season
of
merit.
What we're seeing,
I would bump guys up, but I don't care so much about as long as the guys that I think should be on the team are on the team. I don't care too much about the starters.
I'm
He's just trying to waste another 10
minutes. I'm just asking if there was anybody that you felt was deserving of starting. I think you acknowledged.
East is pretty. I think I'm okay with the East.
I think the East is good. The West is where you say
there's some lifetime achievements on there. Yeah.
Like, does LeBron really need to start this game?
No.
Probably not. Right?
No.
Especially not if you count defense.
And frankly, like I think Anthony Davis probably deserves a start.
He's been better.
His own teammate. So you could get into some other arguments as well, but I'd probably start there. But yeah, I don't think there's nobody that's an egregious one. The only thing I would say is that do you want to ding, Durant or LeBron or some of these guys who they're not playing on teams that are overachieving. Now, Phoenix is on a nice run right now. The Lakers have won a couple games of late that they're trying to turn it around, but I'd say broadly they're disappointing. Do you want to reward those guys? I don't know, but no one's going to complain about LeBron and Kevin Durant starting another All-Star game.
No.
So the people want to see, so I'm fine with that.
Yep. All right, those are our All-Star reserves, and should be a fun one Thursday to find out how right we are. A couple of differences. We had one difference where I was the only one that went Jalen Johnson over Trae Young. Trae Young's he's going to make it, but I just thought.
I think the West is. I'm super interested in seeing what they do with all that.
Yeah,
that is
a bunch,
a lot of chaos.
Clippers,
to
Rockets, Suns, Kings, just a lot overall.
I think there's low likelihood my guy Norm Powell makes it. Let's put it that way. I think if anything,
I know one of them, if not two of the TNT guys did pick Norm Powell as their projection for the reserve. So, I mean, yeah, he's deserving of it. He's leading that team in scoring. So, all right. Yesterday, we know it's been a long podcast, but it's our only one this week. Yesterday, it happened, Derek. Kyle,
fly,
listen,
Eagles,
when
fly.
we signed off on Saturday, Derek, this is why we do basketball, Kyle does football, because he said birds by a million. We said,
yeah, baby.
We said close
to a million.
And
then I said AJ Brown revenge tour.
Man.
Now, I got wrong on Saquon 150, but I think, what was it, 119, whatever?
The passing game was working. It wasn't your fault.
And frankly, when Will Shipley ran for like 70, that should have been Saquon. So
he had the big-time Miles Sanders moment. Get caught from behind, but hey, good stuff from Will Shipley.
I hope they gave him a lot of grief afterwards.
They had
I'll say this. I'm glad he protected the ball and was just like, you know what? I care more about the team victory and making sure
Omar
things.
Epps in the program. Hold the football, baby.
We see the game out rather than going for glory and holding it loose so you can potentially get a touchdown. So that was cool that Will Shipley had that moment at the end of the game.
So the question I was going to ask you guys before you just gave your overview, who was I stole it from the Eagles because I was watching their show, and they asked the question, who gets your game ball? So Kyle, who gets your game ball from yesterday?
I think it's got to be Jalen Hurts, honestly, because I think, Saquon set the tone of that game, right? Where runs for the 60-yard touchdown, crowd's going crazy. But most of that game was spent with Jalen controlling the offense, right? And he had faced all these questions, not just the previous 2 weeks, but all throughout the regular season, right? He gets painted as and viewed as this guy that's like, well, if the game script goes along the wrong way, he can't battle him back from this. And I think the important thing that some smart analysts, including our guys here, have hammered home, he does not put the ball at risk. He has not turned the ball over. And as we saw for Washington yesterday, while it wasn't their quarterback, when you turn the ball over against playoff caliber, championship game caliber teams, that kills you. The other team will punish you. They will take advantage. And so Jalen being on this stretch of protecting the football and then making the dynamic plays yesterday, right? Like making the big throws to AJ, coming up with the must-haves on third down and whatnot. The absolute brain trauma that he is causing people with the tush push, right? Like I'm so glad that he was able to have a big game and a big moment yesterday in a way that continues to crystallize like this guy gets it done. Like he does what is required. And Sirianni's been big on, look, we don't care if we run for 300 and pass for 100 and win. That's what counts. If we pass for 300, run for 100 and win, that's what counts. And it's hard as a quarterback who's making all the money, who has all the pressure to always focus on that stuff. So I just like the perspective that Hurts has. I love the performance yesterday, and it would really be the cherry on top if he can beat Patrick Mahomes and stop those guys from the three-peat.
I remember before he got the concussion. By the way, they haven't lost a game that he has started after the bye week. So just to kind of crystallize that a little bit, remember Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee played. He did not. Right. They have won every game he has started. So the one thing I remember him saying after right before he got injured with the concussion was, we're going to win how I want us to win. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't put those things at risk. Sometimes he'll make silly throws where we're like, oh, they should have picked that off. That happens in every NFL game. Yesterday, he dropped the ball on the goal line during that stretch with the snap. The exchange between he and Cam Jurgens there, he dropped the ball, but he picked it right back up and still gave them another opportunity. And he hit that 4th and 5. Great call by whoever it was, Moore or Sirianni. Hit that 4th and 5 to A.J. Brown.
That was massive. 4th and 5, 31 yards, and that ball was on the money.
At midfield.
Yeah.
At midfield. Well, you would have given them
that point too.
A short field to do something. Hitting Devontae Smith with that toe tap along the same side. And also
those AI cleats, by the way, they're amazing.
And then even where we go back to the press conference from the DC from Washington saying, if they're going to run them, we're going to hit them like a runner. Cool. The issues that we had is the knee going to stop him from being him, the two-way guy that he is? And he showed that his knee was just fine in not only running, but stepping into the throw, making those hard throws and planting his left foot to make those throws. He was fantastic, man. And I love that I love his approach to it. And I love all of these stupid analysts nationwide talking about him because you guys know how I used to always say, stay out of family business. We can't go into Seattle while we can acknowledge things that we see and watching a couple of games and talk about them. The way that they go about it, and then the way that they, like Chris Canty is getting destroyed. I can't stand Nick Wright and Chris Broussard, those guys, all that stuff, the nonsense that they say. But the way that they go, and Chris Sims too, like he's been doing this. He's been on a run, like a campaign for 3 years of how Jalen Hurts is not a good quarterback and he is not winning these games because of the talent surrounding him. He just wins, man. And does it have to be the way that you want him to win the football game in order for them to have the record that he has and get to the Super Bowl?
We can sit here,
outperform Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 57. Do we not Hey, do you not see that they're winning football games?
We can say, like, I think Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, right? I think if you just stack up the resumes and the stats and whatever else, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, like those guys are in a higher tier. But like after that, go through the list of teams and quarterbacks, right? Like one of the guys that NFL media loves to crown is Justin Herbert. That guy has won nothing. He's done nothing. And like, so at the end of the day, I don't really care about, is he the 10th ranked quarterback or the 6th ranked quarterback or any of that. It's like, how does he work in conjunction with the other pieces of the team? And not so much this year because Saquon has had such a special year himself, but part of the reason the Eagles have had a dominant run game is in part because of him, because of the threat that he's been as a dual threat guy, as a power runner, somebody who can run the read option with, DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders and
it works.
Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell and whoever. Those guys succeed because of the line, yes, but also because Jalen's skill set helps take pressure and attention away from them and opens things up for them. So like you just have to look at it from the bigger team view. And I think very clearly he has been a huge asset to this team the entire time he's been a starting quarterback. And it would be awesome to see him. Look, he's the first ever Eagles quarterback to start multiple Super Bowls. Yeah. So that in and of itself is a statement on what he's been able to do in the games that matter.
Gone all this way and we barely talked about Saquon. Just another 120, like clockwork.
I thought you wanted to say something about
Hurts.
No,
I mean, Hurts was good. Yeah. I texted you guys. That 4th and 5 play just blew my mind. Not only that they called it, but the perfect execution. It was an incredible call, an incredible spot.
Yeah.
And they executed perfectly. No turnovers so far in the playoffs. Put the ball on the floor a couple times, but he picked them up both times. Although against the Rams, it doesn't matter. They haven't lost a turnover that he put down. He has been dependable, reliable, and I think people overreacted a little bit against the Rams. That was some of the worst conditions possible, and they was like, "Well, he didn't, so he can't."
That's more of a hey, Matt Stafford, you're a baller, buddy. That he was able to throw. That's no indictment of Jalen.
Guess what? He's not running either.
Yeah.
What does Saquon need though for the
30.
full 30?
Like 30 yards, yeah. And I want him to smash that record.
The real running record, if we're honest, the winner's running record.
But the reason why Terrell Davis is talked about the way Terrell Davis is winning the Super Bowl, and then he also has that all-time scrimmage.
I think
scrimmage record.
Isn't he number 2 as well, or he has 2 seasons that are right there.
But he only had like 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I was gonna say he blew up his knee, and that was basically it for him.
Yes, so Saquon was amazing yesterday, and if Will Shipley, if he didn't bust that 77, Saquon wanted to be out there with him. You saw how great of a teammate he is. And the other thing too with the Hurts part, guys, is who's talked about as the best Eagles quarterback of all time because he won the game? Nick Foles. Do you love Nick Foles before he wins that Super Bowl? You liked him.
No, I'm pretty sure I tweeted out that the season was over.
When I was not a Nick Foles believer. I'm happy to be wrong about that. So
we know who the better quarterback is, and that's no knock to Nick Foles. Just Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback.
There's a body of work.
For mine, just to make it fast, I went a little unconventional, but I went Tyler Steen at the left guard position because we didn't hear his name called but once yesterday. One time. And everybody who goes to Stoutland University, they can get a paycheck from another team, if not this team. But it made me think about when Vaitai had to step in for Jason Peters that year, and he went on that run. He got paid by Detroit because of that game. We know about Sayamalo, what he's doing right now in Pittsburgh, also helping them win. But Tyler Steen has been talked about. Was this a wasted second-round pick from a guy that he can't step in at guard, he can't step in at center? He's just been a guy who they're choosing to decide to go to other players. We're looking at other dudes to step in at his position because he just hasn't been consistent enough. So when everything happened with Juergens and then Dickerson having to move inside, we only heard his name once.
By the way, shout out to Juergens and Dickerson yesterday, man, battling through severe pain, it looked like.
We only heard his name once, Tyler Steen, yesterday. And when we speak about how good, you talked about the offensive line being as good as it is, they were running to the left to him and Mailata, and the holes were still there. The lanes were still there to run through to pick up those type of yards. And I just thought that he deserved he deserved a game ball. There are a lot to be handed out because when you put up 55 and the defense does what they do, get 3 turnovers and all that, the coaches as well, the 2 centers playing the way that they did. But I just thought that guy needed to be acknowledged for what he did.
Now it's time to go make some history, fellas. Finish the job.
Bree, they also picked up a fan yesterday. The Birds did. A new fan. He's from overseas. So this first football game. First football game for Yabusele in the stands. Man, he wasn't even in the box. In the 6'8".
God bless who's ever standing behind the 6'8" big guy at the game yesterday. I feel bad for you.
He was tweeting out today he wanted somebody to basically tell him what was up with the tush push. He didn't really get what was going on there. I don't know if he didn't get the play or if he didn't get them jumping over the line of scrimmage, but he needed some clarification. Which I get. American football is not really big over there.
New Birds fan from him. Also, real fast, you talked about the owners. Report from Bill Simmons saying that Jeffrey Lurie might want to buy
I'm just going to pretend the report
Celtics?
Doesn't exist.
No,
so
you can't do that.
I'm good.
Ooh.
Jeff, learn from your colleagues here. Don't.
Can't do it. All right, let's get ready. Get out of here. It's been an extended one for us here on this Monday. He's from Massachusetts. Right? Yeah, he's from Boston. Yeah,
you can't do it, buddy.
He wanted to buy.
You got to choose a city.
He was in bid for the Patriots before Kraft got it. Yeah. So, all right, let's get to the world famous.
I'm running through these quick. I got to get out of here. We went way too long today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Sean Sharp, Malk C10, Martian Lynch, Aaron, my girl Winona,
hey, Nona.
Brian Knight, Hedfa, Maurice Yams, INS. Who else we got in here today? Is that Devon Gibbons in there somewhere? I don't know who that guy is. Neil Deaver.
What up, Neil?
Hanging out with us today. Who else? God, my computer is just like completely frozen. Is that Jarrell? Jarrell is hanging out here. We got Puppas from overseas.
What up, Puppas?
Trilligan
Island.
Phi C. Phi C.
Phi Chi.
That's how you can tell my computer is dead. Jess is here hanging out. Valos is here.
He's been on the show longer than Devon has.
Yes.
Hanging out. Chicken Finger 94. UK Birds fan 01.
What up?
Also hanging out. SP Cole, Mary Overfield.
Hey, Mary.
And finally, Mom's grandchildren hanging out.
Ramid, what up? Saw you in there. And Sal, too.
And Sal. I think I said Ramid. If I didn't, I apologize to Ramid. Can you guys please, on the way out, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button, it does say thank you to us in the algorithm.
You see darkness?
Darkness, I don't have the heart today, buddy. Hit the thumbs up button to help us in the algorithm. Hit the thumbs up button to say go Birds, and hit the thumbs up button to say thank you to super producer Bree for being here even after celebrating a little bit on Broad Street last night. After that Eagles game, we will be back for pregame and postgame tomorrow night against the mighty Los Angeles Lakers.
6:30?
See you then. Goodbye and go Birds.
Go sign up for the Die Hard program, people. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.